bars of You'll Never Walk Alone being blasted out of the tannoy there at the Bernabeu. The only charitable act, I think, from Real toward Liverpool in this entire tie. Damien, I mean, look, Liverpool fans will be picking over this and wondering where they go now as a team, but you do got to focus a bit on Real and what they've done in this tie. They look in really good shape, don't they, the champions?
Superb, you know. They punished Liverpool, you know, fatally punished them, essentially in the first leg at Anfield, ruthlessly dispatched with them, and then tonight they showed up and, you know, more than just did their job. They dominated for large parts. They created a host of chances. They behaved like a team that have won 14 Champions Leagues. The level of confidence they showed was fantastic. Some of the football they played, Modric again to the fore, the way they were tactically set up, the way they delivered what the manager was looking for with confidence. You know, there was never a hint of nervousness about them. They were just dialed in from the get-go. And it was an uphill task for Liverpool, and realistically, once Real started the way they did in the first 15 minutes, you kind of knew that Liverpool weren't going to get back into it.
The check for the penalty there was the biggest case of prolonging the agony, I think, for Liverpool fans, because that second half, Brian, one thing you were thinking was, right, I mean, the phrase kitchen sink was used at half-time about how Liverpool would go for it. They had one shot in that entire half.
Yeah, well, if they had thrown a kitchen sink at them, it probably would have rebounded and hit them on the head, because Real Madrid were so resilient and strong and weren't for moving. And I just admired them tonight. Their midfield was great. Liverpool at times threatened. Salah had a good first half. Nunes had a decent first half. A couple of good attempts and goal. And they defended quite well for the majority of the match. But you always felt Real Madrid were in control. The dominance of midfield, the performance of young Camavinga, Eduardo Camavinga. I think we're going to be admiring him for a long number of years.
20 years old.
Not much change from the team that won last year. You know, he's just in there instead of Casemiro tonight, but superb performance by Real Madrid. Liverpool just hadn't got enough, and it was too much to ask to come back from 5-2 down.
Yeah, there's a bit of a wistful air in the Bernabeu with those Liverpool fans applauding, those Liverpool players applauding the fans who've stayed and singing You'll Never Walk Alone and thinking of all those great nights over the last few years. Their highest aggregate margin of defeat in a two-legged European tie in their history's happened twice before, back in 66-67 against Ajax 7-3. And 92-93 Cup Winners' Cup against Spartak Moscow. And what really stuck out to me, Damien, was it's less than 10 months since the Champions League final between these two clubs. And that was a game that Liverpool went into as favourites, and Real won it with a kind of almost counter-punching sort of style. Like, what's happened in the meantime?
Well, I'm still going to stand by the claim that I think this Liverpool team have come away from the type of team that got them all the success, that heavy metal type football. They brought in players like Thiago, so they tried to subtly change the style. Factor in then as well that I think a lot of players have just fallen off the side of a cliff with fatigue. The likes of Fabinho, Henderson, Trent Alexander-Arnold, Mane obviously moved on because of contract issues. Brought in Nunes, hasn't had the desired effect. Brought in Gakpo, has done reasonably well. Remains to be seen if he can rejuvenate it. But I think there's a big rebuild, renovation, I suppose, needed at Liverpool over the summer. And I think there might have to be a few sacrificial lambs of players that have been incredibly good to Liverpool in the last number of years. And it has to happen. You know, if they're spent, people like Fabinho, they just can't give the level required, then they need to be moved on. We saw it for years with Alex Ferguson. He always sacrificed someone just to get attention of the rest of the squad, or if he felt that anyone wasn't contributing or was slowing them down, they were moved on very, very swiftly. I think Liverpool are at that stage now. You know, they've kind of shifted already with the likes of Gakpo, Jota, Nunes, sorry, there's one. So they're kind of shifting in that direction, and there might need to be a few sacrificial lambs. And I think Klopp, the way he was smiling there after the game, he obviously is probably saying, you know, this year might be a write-off. We're going to try and get top four, obviously, but I think next year we will see a different Liverpool. You
don't think some of those players can recharge the batteries and go again then?
I don't think so. If they could, they would have, Tom, to be honest with you. I think that, you know, Fabinho looks spent, Henderson spent, Trent spent, Robertson done reasonably well tonight. You know, he's probably on the fence. I think if like I said, the likes of Robertson and and Van Dijk possibly as well, few sacrificial lambs to get their attention, and that, you know, mediocrity or any drop off of any percentage is ever going to be accepted.
What do you think, Brian? Does Klopp need to go in and do, as Damien says, do a Fergie and kick a few lads out the door?
Well, I think a lot of it would be natural. You know, we talk about another one would be Oxlade-Chamberlain. His contract's up. He gets on tonight. He's not made much contribution. He's had a lot of injury problems. But I think, you know, Henderson there'd be a reluctance probably to push Henderson out because he continues to make some contribution. Milner is another one. But they have good young players. We've seen Besic and Elliott come in, have done okay. It's hard to manoeuvre them into the team when the team is not doing very well and try to sustain the levels of success that they've had in previous years. I agree about Thiago Alcantara. He is lovely footballer, nice and neat, but too injury prone and not able to play at the tempo Liverpool liked to play when they were at the best, when it was, you know, high intensity, high press, lots of risk taken. But they could do that when they could depend on the back four they had. They played the high line. How often did we analyse it and say they get away with it? The goalkeeper reads the situation. They get away with the offsides. It's very fine line decisions on the offsides, but the goalkeeper, it gets out, or the recovery of Van Dijk makes up for it. They haven't had that this season. Van Dijk is not the player he was. The combination with whoever he's played hasn't worked well. Konate, I thought, had a decent game tonight. He was poor against Bournemouth the weekend. There might be potential for that. Might be potential for Van Dijk to adapt to the fact that his legs have gone a bit, and for the manager to adapt the system a bit, that they don't play such a high line. But there isn't any doubt that it's a period of change and transition for Liverpool.
But that's the first time either of you mentioned the manager there. Is he not getting a free pass here? Or what's happened?
Maybe he's possibly, but has he earned it, Tom? What he's done at Liverpool? Now, you could argue that some of those players have earned it as well. But then I'm sure he was sat down with the ownership and discussed this, and he probably has a plan moving forward, and the ownership have thought, OK, we like this. But Jurgen Klopp wants to remain, he wants to do the rebuild, and he thinks he can do it, so he deserves that opportunity. But I think there'll be a lot of pressure come on him next year. A year like this that Liverpool have had won't be acceptable. You know, there needs to be a huge bounce back next year.
So you think he had his, not only he has the energy and the sort of, you know, people talk about the 7-year itch that he's had at previous clubs, but that he has the energy and the wherewithal, but also his style of football. That does he have another gear? Does he have another style?
Well, I think he's changing.
Can he be like that man Ancelotti, who's got, you know, different strings to his bow, doesn't play one style?
I think he's changed. I think he has. I mean, you know, the Liverpool teams that I played against in 2015-16, that was this high intensity, put you under an enormous amount of pressure, win the ball high up the pitch and not give any teams a chance to breathe and blow teams away into 20 minutes. I think there was an evolution past that. You know, I think the year Atletico knocked them out of the Champions League, I can't remember what year that was, maybe 18 or 20. Whatever year they knocked him out, I think he realised that maybe they can't bludgeon every team into submission, and that's when the likes of Thiago, Jota came in, and they became a more possession-based football team, and that's why the high line is very hard, because if you want to keep the ball, you need to spread out and make the pitch big, and you're retaining possession. Before, Liverpool never really kept the ball in a possession sense. He just spun it in behind, squeezed up to the halfway line and created a wall of pressure in front of them and just bludgeoned teams into submission. And all of a sudden you're retaining possession, full-backs are a bit higher and wider, centre-backs have split, number 6 is all of a sudden there's gaps, then the ball turns over and you're susceptible. So I think there was a notable shift, and I think he got it wrong. Awfully wrong, actually, if I'm being honest with you, with the introduction of Thiago. He was trying to play football. Henderson was still, you know, bulldozing his way around the pitch. And I think there was a clash of styles there. It depends, or remains to be seen, if he wants to take on that rebuild next year in the summer, if he wants to move on the players that I just mentioned, you know, and there needs to be a line drawn now and saying, hey, listen, you guys have been great for us, but we need to move on now. And either you ship up or...
He can't stop this season in terms of trying to make a top four either, which, you know, he can't be too ruthless. No point in him saying, well, I'll play all the young players, I'll give young Carvalho a go now. Elliott plays every match. He's got to keep the balance on it, and it's difficult because he's got a break now. I think Dave mentioned 17 days, but the next 3 matches in the league are Manchester City, Chelsea and Arsenal. which is
doesn't get any easier.
Two away games first before the Arsenal match. So they're difficult games if you're trying to re-establish yourself into the top 4. So it's a difficult time for them. But I'm almost positive that Liverpool supporters are quite happy that it's Jurgen Klopp who was trying to change things for them and who is going to attempt to do the rebuild that's necessary. I'm sure there's no loss in faith.
And is it as simple, Ryan, just finally on this point, is it as simple as, you know, the FSG lads have a look down the back of the couch, come up with some big amounts of money this summer and go and really invest in real quality?
Yeah, there's a bit of that, but also the judgment of, you know, can they get good players in the market? They've been good in the market before. There's been a bit of change around of sporting directors recently and people moving on, which probably makes it a bit more difficult on the recruitment side. But I'm sure they have their targets, but there'll be very few secrets in the game that Liverpool are going to pull someone out of the bag that for cheap that nobody else has noticed at the same level as them.
Everybody's got the data now, don't they?
Yeah, and it'll be difficult for them to pull out someone like Firmino, for instance, or even, you know, they got Jota out of Wolves quite easy. He hasn't been sensational for them, but they won't be able to pull out another Andy Robertson for a few quid the way they got him out of Hull, was it? I think when he came. Those sort of players, it'll be very hard to do it. They will have to spend big if the rebuilding is going to be successful quickly.
Yeah. I think didn't they say Karim Benzema's contract is up? Maybe even at his age he could do a job for them. That goal, I mean, we thought it was done anyway, but it killed it off. And I think we're going to look at the build-up here, Brian, to this. It kind of summed up what Liverpool had to endure in that second half.
Some of the stuff, it was mesmerising in the game at times. The build-up from the back here works along the side of Tony Kroos. I said about Benzema drifting out towards the left with Vinicius Junior in the first leg as well. Here he is, the build-up goes. It was usually Modric on that side in the first match. Kroos didn't play. Then it's back across the pitch. Almost every player of the team has been involved. I think Carvajal was the only one who didn't get a touch on it. But then they get a little break at the end of it. With the pass from Camavinga, if we see it again. Beautiful pass through the middle. So it comes back inside to him from Valverde. Look at the crisp pass right at the angle into his feet. And a casualness about Van Dijk's recovery after he made the initial bit of a block. Look, it's a bit of a, oh, well, I'm not sure what's going to happen, but I'm not going to affect it. Vinicius gets it back to Benzema and he sticks her in the net for his third goal of this tie over, yeah. Or, you know, he's some player still going, and they've a lot of aging players in the team. You look at Kroos and Modric, 33 and 37, but they're motoring and the condition they're in. I think that says an awful lot about the club and the whole the science back up to it, that they get them to such a pitch so often for this competition.
Especially this time of year when they're going for the Champions League. Benzema, that was his 33rd knockout stage goal in the Champions League, third in the overall standings behind, guess who, Ronaldo and Messi. That's how good he is. Damien, you wanted to look, it's just a little thing you wanted to pick out, contrast from the two legs. You talked before the game about how off it they were defensively, and it was better this evening, but that's something that they should really be ruining in your view. Yeah,
and especially if you hold this, if you just pause this here, this is a setup that I spoke about, you know, and this is a coaching error. This comes down to the coaches setting Liverpool up wrong. They're setting up to defend a wide free kick, but a wide free kick isn't the way to defend this because they leave a huge gaping hole in front of them there. If you just run it through here, obviously Militao picks it up and gets it in, and in the first 10 minutes, so you see the gaping hole there of Modric that he puts it into. Liverpool being set up wrong. Because if we freeze frame it here, they're set up differently. It's a wide free kick, and if you look, Fabinho's come out of the defensive line and he's now stood in the penalty spot to stop that very thing that happened, right? So if we just run it,
and that's a standard setup. What we see there.
No, you see the way they have Fabinho there now to stop anything like that, whereas they set up to defend a wide free kick. But what I'm saying is Liverpool have, I read last year, Liverpool have a throw-in coach, right? So I'd imagine they have a team of people that are looking after set pieces. And the day after that game, I'm pretty sure he got called in. He was hauled over the coals because ultimately, games at this level, small margins, that was the third goal. When Real got it back to 2-2, that was a crucial goal to get themselves in front. And to be let down by a detail that could have been sorted out if the coaching staff were on it. And I'm pretty sure when Jurgen Klopp saw that back, he probably looked at me and went, how in God's name do we leave that great big hole there? And why do we have 7 of our players in a line in front of Alisson marking 1 Real Madrid player? So that's a lack of organisation.
Does that suggest to you that whatever malaise has gripped Liverpool this season, you talk about mental fatigue, physical fatigue of the players, is affecting them off the field as well?
I don't know.
People doing their jobs off the field?
Possibly, but I wouldn't know unless you were in that environment. But what I'm saying to you is, like, these are details that should be taken care of. These are really highly trained, highly paid people that are put in charge of set pieces, and it's their job to drill this down. And to give away a free kick that they did in the first leg and to set up the way they set up is criminal. And especially for such a crucial goal, and it's tiny margins. All of a sudden, Real get their noses in front, their tails are up, they tack on 5, and the tie's done.
That was the momentum of the tie, wasn't it? And it was really going to be a hard ask for Liverpool. Brian, we saw it in the goal there, the Benzema goal, but, you know, the story, particularly of that second half, when you were thinking, right, Liverpool get up and at it, get into their faces and make a few chances, was just the quality of play in that midfield. Modric, Camavinga, Kroos, all involved.
Valverde coming in off the right side as well.
Sensational stuff, wasn't it?
But it's very difficult for Liverpool because the precision of the pass. And look at this stuff. Modric linking up. Valverde comes inside. Ball sweeped out. And it's cohesion. I often talk about cohesion and rhythm in the team, and looking at matches and saying there's no rhythm. Couldn't the other team nullify the rhythm? Stop. Here's rhythm if ever you want to see it. One touch passing. But the confidence of this young player, 20 years of age, come in from Rennes for about 30 million. Most people seem to think Tuchmani was ahead of him at play tonight. Look at him, always in the right position, holding player in midfield, but when he receives it, he's prepared to stride into the gap that opens up for him. But you see, look, that's what I mean. Look, take players on, move on, and be comfortable and confident that other people will cover for him. Modric, what an experience it must be for him to play with Modric and to learn from him about how to run a game, control a game. It was just a little bit picked out, a tackle near the end of the game. The energy of them getting around, there's passing again, precision, link,
it's lovely. It's beautiful stuff, isn't it? Like, it's.
He's a Rolls Royce of a player, you know, and for him to start in a game of this magnitude and perform like that, I mean, never looked flustered, never looked panicked, always in control, always seemed to be in the right place, glides across the ground, very easy on the eye to watch him. And the pass for the Benzema goal that Brian just showed there, the pace that he puts on that. A lot of people might try and play that ball in and leave it short for Benzema to come and get it and link up play, but he puts such pace on it that Benzema can just kill it on the other side of him, and now he's the other side of the centre-backs. I mean, that's just real good judgment from him.
It's all, you know, simple stuff in a way, isn't it? That's what you were showing there, Brian. It's control, turn, like it looks. It's sort of the basics of the game done to a very high level.
Yeah, but like you're talking about these players, you know, World Cup winners, World Cup finalists, and it's very high level stuff. I mean, their ability to work out angles for passes, the control and touch, irrespective of people. You know, when you teaching young players, when they say, make sure you have a look around before you see, look over to, make sure you check where they're coming from. These are the checking constantly, but no matter what pace it's played into him, like the pass time and talked about, the pass into Benzema, he can hit it at any pace he likes, Camavinga. He knows Benzema will get a touch that's taken away from defenders. He doesn't have to worry about it bouncing off them. They're just sensational players, and the mention of Eden Hazard not even getting a look in tonight was interesting as well. They don't need them when they've so many. They brought on 3 or 4 players there, and they're all just as proficient, I suppose, technically is the word I used. They're a joy to watch.
It was a hard watch for Liverpool fans, but it was great stuff at times from Real Madrid.